Hey everyone, welcome back to the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. I am, of course, your host, John Knopick. And if you're new here, you picked a great time to jump in. This show is all about embracing the chaos, the curveballs, and the completely unexpected. Because, let's face it, life rarely goes according to plan, and I know that all too well, as I'm sure you guys do as well. Now, much like the buffet at your favorite questionable diner, you never know what you're going to get on this show. Sometimes it's sweet, sometimes it's spicy, and sometimes you're just going to bite into something that you never saw coming, and it's going to change your life forever in the best possible way, as well as potentially in scary ways as well. Now, today, I'm going to be serving up a full plate of the wildest left turns my life has taken. Cross country moves, career shakeups, family drama, and all the moments that made me stop and say, well, I sure did not see that one coming. Now, but it's not just about me here on this show. I want to hear from you guys as well. You guys are just as big of a part of this as I am. What's the biggest left turn your life has taken? Hit me up on all social media. I am at Smorgasbord JK, or shoot me an email, John Knopick Ventures, and let me know all about your story. Maybe I'll share it on a future episode. So, if you don't mind, go over there, grab a plate, pull up a chair, and let's dig in to the Smorgasbord Survival Guide. Because if there is one thing that I have learned in this 4.5 decades here on this spinning rock, it's that the best stories always come from the detours. Let's jump in and let's get started. So let's kick things off with one of the biggest left turns I've experienced in my life, and that's moving. And not just moving down the street, although I did do that when I was growing up. Moved from my parents' house to a place about 3 blocks down the road with some roommates and had a nice little futon that I called my dungeon of love, so to speak. But no, I'm talking about packing up everything you own, cramming it into a U-Haul or one of them big semi-trailers, and driving across country with your entire life and all of your memories rattling around in the back. I've moved more times than I'd like to admit and can count. Iowa to California, back to Iowa, down to Alabama, up to Tennessee. And each one of those moves definitely has had its own set of surprises, to say the least. Headaches as well. And let's just be honest, guys. A few, what the hell are we doing moments. Because, when you're moving that much and that frequently and that often, you gotta question, what the hell am I doing? Now, let's kick this off, and let me tell you about a time that we moved, the time that we moved from Iowa to California, which was by far and away, obviously, at the time, the biggest move of our lives. We thought, oh, we got this. We got this. We did all the preparations. We went through on U-Haul, found the better, I'm sorry, we went through we were going to go on U-Haul, but then we decided we are not driving all of that stuff that long of a distance, 2,000 miles. No, thank you. So we did some research online, found a good rental moving company, not one of those fly by night like 2 men in a truck or the Mayflower and thing da da da. We found another one that was really really reputable, and we got that all squared away. In addition to that, we did our research and our due diligence to find a good place to live out in California that would have been close enough to where I was working when I was in Santa Monica, and at the same time, allowed us to live comfortably at the same time. So we drew up budgets, all the schematics, everything we needed to draw up as far as the preparation goes. And we thought, dude, we got this. We got all of our stuff packed. We got all of our stuff organized. We got the truck lined up. We got the map lined up to get us out to the new place. We got money set aside for deposit and first month's rent and all that other stuff. We had our playlists ready. We had snacks. I mean, we were ready to roll. But unfortunately, nothing nothing prepares you for the moment that you realize you've packed your toothbrush at the very bottom of a box labeled winter coats. Yeah, so that was fun. We also had an issue when we were halfway through the state of Nebraska, and our cats, who we had three at the time, decided, hey, you know what? We don't like these little scenarios here where we're stuck in these little carriers. So they decided to get out and explore all over the car as we're driving down the highway. So yeah, needless to say, my wife was playing whack-a-mole, trying to keep them all from jumping up on the dashboard or getting in my lap, and eventually leading to a massive crash, which thankfully did not happen. And in addition to that, we did have our share of U-Haul drama as well. Now, obviously, if you guys have ever rented a moving truck, and I'm sure most of you have, it's basically a rite of passage. Ours, the one that's the services that we went with, we saw had really good reviews. So we were thinking, okay, we're feeling pretty confident about this. And unfortunately, we didn't have the funds at the time to rent out the entire trailer to ourselves. So the way they did it was they basically rented an 18 wheeler with a big long cab in the back and sectioned off people's livelihoods. So it wasn't just ours that was on their truck; they had additional ones. So basically, it's like FedEx on steroids when you're moving using those services. And unfortunately, some of their movers, the actual loaders themselves, not the actual transport company, decided that rather than playing Tetris and being meticulous and making sure that everything was in the proper spot and it was all nicely neat and organized, they decided to go full on NASCAR pit crew with the load, essentially. Everything was okay. I don't believe anything was broken when we arrived, but it was absolutely a cluster, you know what, when it came to the unloaders having to remove everything out of there and us trying to get everything put in their proper spots once we got to our place. Now, that all being said, we still made it. All of our stuff still transported out to California without any major issues or anything like that. It all made it out actually within the time frame that they allotted. We got out there about a day before the stuff arrived, so were forced to stay at a hotel because we didn't have anything to, we were going to just sleep on a bare floor in our apartment in Woodland Hills. So we ended up getting a hotel, which incidentally, like I mentioned on the last show, was just down the block from where I stayed when I was out in LA for my job with Toyota. And, even in driving that long of a distance, we learned a lot about ourselves. We learned a lot about who we were as a couple, because at the time, we'd been together 13 years. Um, and we still had some rough patches, but that long of a drive together, our longest drive ever together at the time, it brought us closer together, I believe. It really made us cherish each other even more. And plus, we got to see the country too. We got to see areas of the country that we'd never really gotten to see before. Only when we'd flown over them. So we'd never outside of going to Denver and Nebraska a couple times. We'd never been to Utah before. Nevada, we'd been through part of that when we went to Vegas, but we got to see other parts of that we hadn't got to see before. And then, of course, California. Outside of me, flying in, and then we flew out as she flew me out as a surprise one year for my birthday, and we got to go to San Diego, and we got to go to TV taping of a sitcom, which was amazing. And I'm going to actually roll that all into California Dreams, not the television show, but California Dreams and Experiences and things like that. I'll roll that into a future episode. But yeah, we got to see the country in ways we hadn't before. So that was another positive that we really enjoyed about getting to drive that long of a distance. Now, let's let's fast forward the clock, shall we? 4 years later, we did everything we felt we could do in California outside of the acting stuff that I didn't take advantage of because I was a moron and was too focused on my work and not trying to do both. Now moving back to Iowa in 2020, that was a whole different beast altogether because unfortunately, excuse me, in the time that we had been living in California, unfortunately, two of our three cats passed away. Our orange big tabby scout that we loved to the ends of the earth and back, he had passed away just before he turned 16. Shortly before he passed, his sister, we called her Chicky, or Jazz was another name we called her. She was 15. She passed due to she had some cancer that they found in her ears that was inoperable, unfortunately. So we had, didn't have those two cats anymore. We had a third cat. His name was Lucky, and Lucky was not um, able to come with us. And I'll explain why here in just one moment. Taking a quick hydration break. I'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. Need a little hydration break. Still battling a little bit of a end of a bug. All right. So as I was saying, we had a third cat. His name was Lucky, and unfortunately, he couldn't make the trek back with us because without the other two cats there, he was a cat that definitely needed to be around other cats as well, and he didn't really take too well to our new little newborn. So, unfortunately, we had to rehome him. We found a really great family for him to go to, but alas, he was not able to join us. So, as I said, it was definitely a different beast coming from California back to Iowa. In the fact that we went from three cats, our little car, our car at the time, which I believe was a Honda Accord, and transporting everything via a semi-trailer to ourselves, our amazing little guy, little newborn who was less than 2 months old at the time. Um, we still had a small car. We actually had a Toyota Prius that I got thanks to money I won on Wheel of Fortune. Again, I'll go over that in the California episode that I'll be doing later on. Um, Still did the transport, and it was much different. It was a very stressful one driving back because yet again you had less than a 2 month old in there, and neither one of us were parents before, so we'd never gone through this before. And his crying and his fussiness, which is expected for a newborn, for a 2 month old. Um, I unfortunately, due to my upbringing and how I was raised, um, basically I was sidetracked, as I like to do. I was told as a kid, no uncertain terms, not to cry, not to, and anytime I did or I was upset or I showed emotion, I got reamed by my father. And unfortunately, for a while, that cycle remained, and I passed that on to the way I initially treated my son, which to this day is one of my biggest regrets. 'Cause he didn't deserve it. He's just a little baby. There's nothing you could do about that. Um, But luckily, as time has gone on, I've definitely amended, uh, changed my ways and amended fences and things like that. Um, but yeah, we made it back, to Iowa. We had our own little sense of drama in the fact that, due to weather-related issues, because again, this was the end of February, so there was winter that was happening in the middle of the country. We were sidetracked, so we ended up taking a route that took us actually through Albuquerque, New Mexico, again, areas we'd never been to before, through Amarillo, Texas, and up through Kansas and Oklahoma, Kansas, and then up into Nebraska and into Iowa. Again, had we have taken a faster route, had the weather have been more cooperative for us, it's possible we could have made it sooner and we could have made the last 2 hour trek to Iowa City, and I could have had the chance to have my son meet my mom in person for the first time. But such is life, right? Yeah, unfortunately, that didn't happen. Um, but as we were leaving California, we had thought to ourselves, "Hey, we've done this before, man. We got this all mapped out. We got the transport. We got the new place to live in Des Moines. I got the new job. We got some money. Where is it going to be driving back?" As you could just tell by what I've said, famous last words. And yeah, as I said, the drive was long. Kid was fussy, unfortunately, and the weather decided to throw in that snowstorm just for kicks. And we were absolutely ready for that fresh start. And yeah, and what a fresh start it was, filled with trauma and loss and everything that you could feel would go wrong would go wrong. Um, and that was Iowa for a year and a half that we were there. Now, after a year and a half of living up there in Iowa, dealing with all the trauma and stress, and unfortunately, we went from California, where we had really good eating options. We were working out, we were losing weight, everything was going solid. Moved to Iowa, had trauma, unexpected loss. They had a bunch of really bad food. We fell into bad habits, and our weight ballooned to numbers that we never want to ever see again. So yeah, Iowa. At least for me, I'm not going to give you the real finger that I want to give, but you get the gist. But after a year and a half of living in Iowa, we decided to pack up again because, again, I got that awesome opportunity, which I thought was an awesome opportunity at the time, working for Hearst Television and being promoted to the senior IT manager in training. And decided, hey, well, we haven't seen the Deep South yet, so why not move to Birmingham, mother flippin' Alabama? And, moving to the South was absolutely 100 million% a culture shock. Anybody who thinks it isn't is fooling themselves. The food was different. You had a lot more things down there that you don't have up in Iowa. Like you had Publix grocery store, Hungry Howie's Pizza. Um, you had a lot more, way more barbecue and rib and brisket type joints down there, like Nick and Jim's barbecue, for example. A lot more stuff down there than Whataburger. Just to name a few. The accents, of course, were way thicker. We got more y'alls and whatnot than you would up in Iowa, and it kind of bled into us the time that we lived there. And yeah, excuse me, let's not forget the humidity, shall we? And the severe storms. Because unfortunately, even though they say Iowa is the northern part of Tornado Alley, Alabama was a totally different animal when it came to their storms and things down there. Um, we had to deal with a lot more dicey weather, to say the least. And yeah, with the humidity and everything like that, I absolutely learned the true meaning of the word air that you can wear. Because yeah. Even in the cold months of November through like January down there, it was still cold to them, was 40s and 50s. So, we definitely had to make the adjustments that we were there for a couple of years to new routines, new neighbors, even though we really didn't make fast friends with our neighbors just because of the environment we were in, as well as the new pace of life. Um, we didn't have the chaos of all the multiple lane highways that California provided us. We didn't have all of the back road stuff that Iowa provided us. Um, Plus the fact, that with living in Alabama, we had the ability to drive down to Panama City Beach, Mobile, Destin, Florida, where my nephew is now. He's in the Air Force. So we had that nice little benefit just a couple hours south of us, and then 2 hours north of us, my sister lived up in Spring Hill. Um, we also in that same time, we also discovered some amazing things down there as well. In tying in, like I said, the barbecue places down there, incredible. I had never been a barbecue sauce person growing up, but trying the sauce down there, I was instantly hooked. The brisket, fall off the meat, fall off the bone, absolutely gruel inducing food down there. And also community in Calera. We lived in Calera, Alabama, which again is about half an hour south of Birmingham. And community that for all of its quirks, it actually did welcome us in with open arms. Calera Public Library, my son and I and my wife loved going there every week for story time. He had blast. He made some really good friends down there. A kid he named Ben. His real name is Ben, but my son called him Ben Ben. Was one of his great, great friends that lived down there. And they still try to chat every now and again. My wife still texts his grandma, and they still try to video chat every now and again. So Alabama definitely was more of a welcoming environment than Iowa, and definitely way less drama than we dealt with. Plus, it gave us the benefit of starting to build roots and have friends and things like that. Now, you know, eh, even right after we got down there, the genuinely amazing people at Hearst Television, obviously, like I mentioned in my previous episode, decided to throw the bullseye on my back and eliminate me from my role. Um, and because of that, I had to scramble to find another opportunity, which I did with the incredible company that I'm with now. So, just when we thought we were all settled in down in Alabama, I'd been there a couple of years, it was once again time to hit the road, Jack, um, because we were moving up to Tennessee because my job, even though it is 100% remote, and I'm so insanely grateful for that, decided, it'd be easier if you lived a little bit closer to Nashville for the times that you needed to come in for town halls, infrastructure meetings, things like that. So we looked in the area that my sister was in Spring Hill and in the areas around there. And unfortunately, at the time, financially didn't suit us. Um, we found ourselves going over to Jackson, which at the time we had read good things about Jackson, but we'd also read bad things about Jackson from crime standpoint and things like that, being called Little Memphis. And as time went on and we lived there for a year, we absolutely embraced and understood why it was called Mini Memphis. And as we lived there, crime and uneasiness and unrest got worse and worse and worse. So luckily, with my job, the way it was structured, I was able to get promoted, and I got promoted up to an observability engineer role. And with that came a nice bump in salary. We get annual bonuses, and provided everything's going good. And because of that, that allowed us to financially be a lot more stable, at least from an income standpoint, and allowed us to move here to where we are now in Columbia, Tennessee, which we now love, 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 and we'll definitely can see this becoming our forever home. And and with each move, Birmingham to Jackson, Jackson to Columbia, it all brought its own sets of challenges and surprises. Case in point, we were moving from Birmingham to Jackson. I was going on one of the narrow two-lane roads, and I thought, hey, I can make this curve, and then I realized we missed our turn. Tried to turn the U-Haul around, got stuck in a ditch. Tennessee, uh, Tennessee loveliness, or Tennessee family welcoming, so to speak. These people, just random people, we didn't know where we were at the time. We were close to where we were going to be moving into, but we hadn't quite made it there yet. This random people noticed that we got stuck in the ditch. They came out of their house and they actually had a winch in their pickup truck and were able to pull us out of the ditch and got us back on our way. So again, challenges, but at the same time, Tennessee showed its love from the get-go. And even through all of that, we've been finding ways to adapt, found ways to laugh and keep moving forward. And it's made us very stronger and more adapted to handle future things as they come up. So, to sum up this segment, if you guys are ever facing a big move or a big culture shock inducing event on the horizon, let me give you a piece of advice. Expect the unexpected, overpack your snacks, don't be afraid to laugh at the chaos, and make sure that your toothbrush is not in the bottom of your winter coat bag. That's not going to bode well for you, especially when you have your gums that you need to get cleaned at the end of the night. Make sure you're always labeling your boxes, but don't trust the labels, because just because you labeled it doesn't mean what's in there is what's supposed to be in there. And always, 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 as I said, double check that you've got the essentials, because nothing says, welcome to your new home, like realizing you have no idea where you packed your toilet paper. Yeah. Now I want to, as I said, I want to hear your moving stories too. What's the wildest thing that's happened to you guys during a move? Did you ever end up in the wrong city, like we did with Jackson? Did you lose something important during the move? Like you packed all your stuff up in the car and when you were rushing out to get gas or go to the bathroom during a break, something fell out and you didn't realize it and you drove off. Meet a new friend on the road? Send me your stories. I'll share the best ones on a future episode. Again, at smorgasbordjk, or shoot me an email, john at Knopick, Knopick, ventures.com. And of course, guys, as I said, moving, it's never ever easy. It's taught me a lot about resilience, flexibility, and the importance of finding humor in the hard moments because no matter what you guys go through, you've got to find that humor in the hard moments. You always got to have that light in the darkness. And honestly, guys, some of my favorite moments come from those chaotic, unpredictable moves. Some of the greatest times I had was on the road, checking out the new places, um, seeing things as they came to us and whatnot. So if you're in the middle of a big transition, hang in there, guys. You absolutely have got this. So, gonna take a little break. Gonna be right back with the next segment, which is gonna deal all with them lovely, lovely, lovely career curveballs. Stick around. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. Like what you hear? You can reach me on all social media platforms at SmorgasbordJK or shoot me an email, john at knopickventures.com. Thanks for tuning in. Time to grab a plate and let's get back to the grub. All right, guys, welcome back to the Smorgasbord. I'm John Knopick. Thank you very much for tuning in as always. Now, let's shift gears, shall we? And let's talk about work. You know, the thing that keeps food on the table, keeps the lights on, keeps your kids content, and keeps your sanity. At least for depending on what career path you've taken and what organization or what field that you're in. Now, if you've listened to this show before, you're gonna know that my career path has been anything but a straight line. That's an understatement. I've worked in tech support. I've worked for TV, both TV stations as well as radio stations. I've worked for mortgage companies. I've done the old school grease fry cook gigs. Working at TGI Fridays, working at Burger King, working at McDonald's briefly, working at Panera Bread. I've done the paper route thing when I was a youngin'. Um, been all over, and I even dabbled in the music industry, like with helping out with where I'm at now with my incredible company that I currently am associated with. And in addition to that, with all of those jobs and fields, I've been laid off, been promoted, had been relocated, and everything in between. So again, much like the title of my show, my career path has also been a smorgasbord, both good and bad. Now, my first big career turn, left turn, I should say, came, when I was left that steady job, excuse me, when I was working for with Toyota Financial Services, had been there just under 3 years, to take the shot and opportunity of a lifetime and pack up everything we knew and loved and moved out to California to work on a television station. That was something I had never done before. To say I was skited, that's a word that I like to use, throwing excited and scared all at the same time. To say I was skited, nervous, and completely unprepared for everything that California and LA was going to throw at me is a massive understatement. You see LA and you see California on your TV shows, your movies, and things like that, and you always expect it to be a certain way. In certain cases, it is, but in other cases, it's definitely a shock. I've driven around Chicago a lot, growing up, as I had said previously. So I was comfortable and I was familiar with 5, 6 lanes of traffic going each way. My wife, on the other hand, If we get anywhere near Metropolis, we're switching places before we get to downtown because I'm the one that's going to be driving. Uh, and the first day, once we were able to get all of our stuff packed in, and starting to get things unloaded in our new place, um, my first day, getting ready for my first day at Game Show Network, I decided to look at the drive, from Woodland House Apartments up in Woodland Hills down to Game Show Network in Santa Monica. And typically I've been used to okay, this is about a 15, 16-mile drive, I believe is what it was, around about that. And when I lived in Iowa, it was 20 minutes, depending on, the time of day. California, on the other hand, it was a 45-minute drive because you're driving down the canyon, and then in addition, you had PCH, where that time of morning it was very, very busy, and then you had the one freeway as well. So, ended up having to adjust what time we woke up in the morning, got all of our morning tasks out of the way and things like that. And I decided, hey, I'm gonna get there an hour early. I'm gonna show them initiative. I'm gonna be like, dude, I'm your guy. I'm here. I'm here early. I'm ready to rock. Little did I realize at the time that I had parked in the wrong parking lot. The lot I thought I was supposed to park in was actually not the one that was earmarked for my company. So I ended up having to sprint across 3 city blocks in my brand new workout fits. By the time I got to the office, because it's in Southern California and it was the middle of July, I looked like I had just ran the LA City Marathon. Now, yeah, so it was a great way to make a first impression, to say the very least. But that being said, that job actually opened doors that I never expected to have opened for me. Um, I went and I had the ability to meet celebrities. Howie Mandel pitched a show, the Game Show Network. He was there, and I got to actually help them set up all of their tech equipment, help them actually do some of their game show run throughs. So I got to meet Howie Mandel. He was incredible. I got to meet the Spaska sisters. If you ever seen an old Game Show Network show called Elevator, they're two twin women that are like big into horror and things like that. I got to meet them. Um, I got to do a lot of things, and I also got to partake in some game shows that are actually on Game Show Network now. I actually got to help them do the run through, so I kind of feel like I was part of their building process. Um, it was definitely a shock, a change. It was nerve wracking, but at the same time, it was absolutely an incredible opportunity and a game changer for me. Because that allowed me to jump over to Fox. Once my position got eliminated with Game Show Network, I was able to jump over to Fox Sports. And again, as I mentioned on the previous episode, that allowed me the opportunity to build up a white glove concierge service for high-end Fox VIPs to fix their tech issues, which allowed me to help Terry Bradshaw with his email issues, help Erin Andrews with her cell phone issues, help Jimmy Johnson navigate some new applications that we were running for Fox Sports. Excuse me. I got to do a lot of once in a lifetime hit list related um, things with that career path. And just for a little spoiler alert, Terry Bradshaw is absolutely as hilarious in person as he is on TV. That is not a facade. That is not a persona. He is that person in real life, and I wish I could have made even bigger friends with him, but it was incredible times I did get to help him. Now, of course, not every career move, again, as I said, was by choice. Game Show Network laid me off, first one in, or last one in, first one out, due to budget cuts. And with Fox Sports, unfortunately, with their marketing department not taking things the way that they should have been to get things truly rolling, relegated me down to a role that I swore I would never do again, and I ended up having to, cut ties with them. And each time I bounced from those roles to roles, I felt like the rug was being pulled out from underneath me. Uh, but looking back, those moments forced me to reinvent myself, to try new things, to put myself out there more. In retrospect, I ended up discovering strengths I didn't even know that I had. And it served me well, and it actually has really helped me throughout my career since that point. Now, again, after I left Fox because I just couldn't handle doing just rudimentary help desk, first level tech support stuff anymore, I ended up working for that digital mortgage company, Doc Magic. Something I never would have considered if I hadn't been pushed out of my comfort zone to begin with. And you know what? I absolutely loved it. But yeah, it started off rocky because I was interviewing for the gig, and at the time I needed some hydration before the interview, so I had a iced coffee that I was drinking. And little did I realize that the lid was not firmly on. So before my interview in person with my soon to be colleague and boss, I was taking a drink, and you guessed it, sploosh. Coffee all down the front of my shirt. Luckily, my shirt was dark, but it was still stained. You could still see the stain. So what did I do? I had to do it in a pinch because I was in their little conference room waiting for them to come in. I flipped my shirt around. So when they came in, my shirt was backwards. It looked somewhat normal, but um, I didn't realize there were cameras in the conference room. And to this day, one of my good friends, Jerry, who was my colleague there, he's like, "Yes, still can't believe you were trying to pull a Houdini, David Copperfield by trying to switch your shirt around." He's like, "We saw it, and we were like busting a gut laughing, but we felt like this kid can do that, we feel he's going to be a good fit here." And it actually, in hindsight, ended up helping me land the gig. So, as I said, had I not been pushed out of my comfort zone, I wouldn't have met some of my best friends there, like Jerry. I wouldn't have learned even more new skills and proved to myself that I could adapt no matter what the situation was. And then, of course, after that came the pandemic, 2020. I love it. The lab, uh, lab leak that Fauci and the rest of the guys pushed out to the world because they wanted to do some depopulation and try to really lock down control of the world. I mean, I'll get into that in a future episode, but I definitely have a lot to say. But about the pandemic, like with so many people, I ended up finding myself initially um, working from home briefly with KCCI, and then we were able to get back into working out of the actual television studio, but we were very segregated. We had our own little offices that were spread out, just because at the time we didn't realize what was going on with the virus and what the carrion the what how contagious it was, things like that. So the majority of the sales staff for KCCI stayed for working at home for months and months after I was there. We were all spread out into different offices, and they slowly staggered bringing people back. And suddenly my commute was from driving, getting in my car and driving to the office every day to getting up from the bedroom, going down to the kitchen table, getting my coffee, waking up, and then heading up into my makeshift office with my laptop and my desk. And, my coworkers slash office managers became my incredible wife, my phenomenal son, and, um, Zoom became my best friend with meetings and talking to my manager and things like that. Now, remote work, of course, absolutely had its challenges. Zoom fatigue, anybody? But it also gave me a new appreciation, and to this day, a massive appreciation for flexibility and work-life balance because it allows me to do my work in addition to having a home life at the same time. And I'm not having to miss out due to commutes back and forth from the office. I also, in that time working from home, learned to set boundaries, learned how to properly take breaks and stay hydrated, and find joy in the very little things, like lunchtime walks with my wife and son, or, impromptu dance parties in the living room when we just needed to cut a rug and just decompress, things like that. It really helped you be able to appreciate things even more from a home perspective. Now, if you guys are facing currently in the process of facing a layoff or potentially a big career change, I'm going to give you a piece of advice for this as well. Don't panic. Whatever you do, don't panic. Because I find that for me, when I panic and I'm in a rush and I'm distracted and I'm lost focus, things tend to go off the rails very quickly and things end up being worse. So yeah, absolutely do not panic. Step back, take a breath, look for the opportunity again in the chaos, as we've said before, and remember that your path does not have to look like anyone else's. Your path is your path. You are writing that story. You don't have there's no blueprint that you have to follow. Sometimes that detour and those unexpected curves is where you're going to find your real passion and you're going to really find a career move and a career choice that's going to suit you potentially for the rest of your life. If you guys have, again, if you have a story about a career curveball that you went through, a job you never thought you would ever land that you did, a layoff that led to even something greater than you could have anticipated, or even a work from home disaster. Did you spill hot coffee on yourself when you were getting ready to go into a meeting with your bosses in Tokyo? Did you step on the cat's tail during a town hall and it made everybody in the room turn their heads towards you? Send it my way at Smorgasbord JK on all social medias or John at Knopick, Knopick Ventures, VENTURES.com. I would love to share you guys' experiences on a follow-up feedback episode. And of course, guys, work is absolutely, positively a huge part of all of our lives, obviously. But it doesn't define us. The most important thing is that you keep moving forward, stay open to your new possibilities, and you always have to remember that every left turn is a chance for you to learn and grow. And with that, we're going to take another little break here. I will be back momentarily for our next segment where we're going to dive into family and everything that's tied to it. So stick around, guys, and we'll be right back on the Smorgasbord with John Knopf. You're listening to the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. Like what you hear? You can reach me on all social media platforms at SmorgasbordJK or shoot me an email, john at knopickventures.com. Thanks for tuning in. Time to grab a plate and let's get back to the grub. All right, guys, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in again, as I said, to the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Now, let's go on to our next little heaping helping of content here on the Smorgasbord. And let's talk about family, shall we? You know them, you love them, you were born into them, and you stuck with them. If you've listened to my story on the previous couple episodes, and I really appreciate it if you have, you know my family history is, let's just call it colorful, to say the least, shall we? I've absolutely, over my 45 years, have had my ups and downs, not only with my parents, with siblings, as well as with my wife's family as well. Of course, I have lost loved ones, more than I'd like to count, and built a new family and a very strong family dynamic with my wife and son. One that I cherish to this day, and one that I'm very, very proud that I get to um, come home or be with every single day of our lives. Now, growing up in Iowa, again, as I said to you guys, my family was very small but complicated. I had my two older sisters, my mom, my dad. At the time, growing up when I was a little kid, still had my grandma. I had my uncle Johnny, who I love to the end of the earth. Love you, Johnny. My aunt Irene, her husband Cliff, and my cousin Mary, and my wife Aunt Irene's mother Hannah. So there's 10 of us. And as I said, I was the youngest of three. And of course, being the youngest of three and the only boy in the house, we did not always see eye to eye. My sisters did everything they could to make sure that I was protected, that I was raised properly, that I had soundboards to talk to them about things. Um, but, at times though, it was very, very, very strange. Just because, older sisters, they do their own thing, and I'm, trying to tag along to stuff and things like that. So, it was complicated, but at the same time, it shaped me to be part of it shaped me to be who I am today. And of course, my relationship with my parents was an absolute roller coaster. The majority of the time, my mom and I were simpatico. Um, she'd always protected me as well. Again, as I said on my previous episode, my dad, at least when I was young and an infant and toddler stage, did his best to take me on runs with him when he did his truck driving stuff, bring me home trinkets and things when he wasn't able to take me on the longer runs. But as we got older and as I got into my teenage years, it just soured and went down. And his true inability to raise a son um, came forward, and it split our relationship, and to this day has never been repaired. My older sisters, again, they took care of me as best they could. But unfortunately, as we got older and I got into my teenage years, the favoritism really showed. Annie, my older sister, was my dad's princess, still is. My oldest sister, Katie, who I do not have a relationship with at this moment, was more on the lines of my mom than my dad, and of course, I was absolutely my mom's Mimi. So yeah, with my parents upbringing my parents, it was definitely a roller coaster. There was lots of love, but also plenty of misunderstandings and tough times as well. And again, as I said to you guys, losing my mom was one of the hardest things that I've ever faced in my entire life. She was the glue that held my family together. Um, and her absence left a hole that it's still there, a massive gaping hole the size of the Grand Canyon that's still there, and I have a feeling will always be there. Um, it also, unfortunately, in hindsight, it teach me to cherish the importance, or I'm sorry, it taught me the importance of cherishing every single moment that you have with those that you love, because you never know when those opportunities will go by the boards and just be snatched from you by higher powers that people say have our best interests in heart. But again, not getting into religion at this point. And I struggled, as I said in my previous episode, I struggled as a teenager and into my early 20s until I met my wife. And that's when everything changed. Her family, again, I call them the Sopranos. I lovingly call them the Sopranos because they're a massive family. So many cousins, so many sisters, brothers, uncles, aunts. Anytime anybody has to go into a hospital room or have to go somewhere, they all show up in droves. They welcomed me with open arms from square one way back in 2003. And they gave me a whole lot of food and a whole lot of love and support, things that I had clamored for and longingly needed for the longest time that I fell out of repute with my existing family. And in that time, suddenly, I had a new support system. I had a new set of traditions and a new sense of belonging. I got to do things, annual traditions that I never got to do with my family, that my family just didn't do. And then, you know, we still felt like there was a missing piece. My wife and I still felt, even with her family at the time, things going good, my family being what it was, we still felt like there was a big chunk that was missing for our lives to truly be complete. And that's when 2020 happened. And that's when our incredible, phenomenal, handsome, hilarious, chaotic, tornado of a sun came into our lives. And every single day, I get to see that smiling face. Every single morning, I wake up. He is our wake up clock. He is our cuckoo clock. 6:30 when his light goes green on his little star clock he's got in his bedroom, or I'm sorry, light goes red in his bedroom on his star clock. He's into our door, and the first place he comes is around our bed, over to my side, and I'm giving him a big hug and a kiss, and I'm saying, "Good morning, little man." And that's absolutely the best way to start off every single one of my days. I got my wife next to me, and just, I feel complete. I feel like I'm ready to take on the day from square one at that moment. And our son, absolutely, as I said, was the missing piece. He's the glue that holds us together. makes fast friends wherever he goes to any park, goes to the library, goes to the stores. People just have these massive smiles on their faces anytime they encounter him. Um, and he reminds me every day why I always got to keep pushing forward because he deserves that. He deserves the life, the love, the support, and the upbringing that I unfortunately was not afforded, especially in my teenage years. Watching him grow, watching him adapt and thrive in our environment now has been absolutely by far and away one of the greatest joys and experiences of my life, and something that I am so proud I get to go through day after day after day. Now, moving to new places like Birmingham, Jackson, California, Columbia, it always meant, excuse me, it always meant leaving behind the familiar, but it also meant finding new support systems. Case in point, moving here to Columbia. My wife, when we lived in Jackson, just had that one, didn't really have any fast friends out there, didn't really have a support system. Moving here to Columbia, she's got her crew, the moms that are or the moms of my son's friends. And she's made a massive support system with them. They text each other back and forth. If someone needs something in a pinch and someone's able to help out, they help each other out. They give each other advice. They talk daily. So they really built that solid, strong support system. Um, and again, as I said, my wife, she's always been a bit of an introvert. She stepped out of her comfort zone and made those fast friends with those other parents. Suddenly she has her crew. He has his crew, and it's almost like a new chosen family that's helped us not only feel at home, um, but also made us feel like we belonged from square one, even when everything else in the environment was completely brand new. So in that time of being with her family and now these people as well, I've learned, family is not just about blood. It's not. It's not about who you were born into. It's not about your genetics. It's about the people who show up, the people who support you, and the people who make you feel like you belong. That's your family. That is absolutely 100% your family. Now, if you guys are struggling with family stuff, trying to build that new support system, just realize, guys, you're not alone. Sometimes that family is going to be, sometimes family is the one that you're born with, but sometimes it is the ones that you find along the way, and those can end up actually being the stronger family bonds that you never had with your original genetically based biological ones. And again, guys, and when it comes to family, I want to hear your stories about your families. Whether it's a funny holiday disaster, whether you got in with your new in-laws and it became your new support system, whether you moved somewhere you never thought you would move and you made fast friends. If there was an unexpected kindness or even a time when your chosen family came through for you. Give me your stories. Tell me what you guys went through. I want to hear them at SmorgasbordJK on all social medias or John at CanoppicVentures.com. Send them in, and I would be happy to broadcast them out to the world on a future feedback episode. And guys, family's messy, family's complicated. Sometimes family's just downright frustrating, but it's also the source of our greatest strengths. So, whatever you guys do, by all means, absolutely hold those people close, and do not in any short form or a fashion, do not be afraid to reach out when you need that support because you never know who's going to come through for you guys. And that's the end of this segment. We got one more segment coming up. That's going to be our listener smorgasbord segment. And I'll be right back to kick that off here on the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around. You're listening to the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. Like what you hear? You can reach me on all social media platforms at SmorgasbordJK or shoot me an email, John at CanoppicVentures.com. Thanks for tuning in. Time to grab a plate and let's get back to the grub. Welcome back to the Smorgasbord. I am John Knopick, and for our final segment of the episode, we're going to dive into what we call the listener smorgasbord. I'm going to be turning over the ladle, aka microphone, over to you guys. I reached out on social media for your stories and your life's biggest left turns from previous episode, and you guys absolutely delivered. Um, so first up, we've got a message from Sarah out of Chicago, Illinois. She wrote, John, I moved from excuse me, I moved from New York City to Chicago with nothing but two suitcases and a cat. Ended up getting lost on the Chicago subway my first day and ended up in just outside of Skokie, and I was supposed to be in Schaumburg. But luckily for me, I met a stranger who helped me find my way, and now she's one of my best friends. I guess sometimes getting lost is the best way to find what you need. Could not agree with you more there, Sarah. And yeah, it's amazing how sometimes, when you feel you're in the most amount of the weeds, that's when your true shining light will come through in one way or another. So thank you for sending that one in, Sarah. And here's one from Mike, who is out of Miami, Florida. Mike says, after getting laid off during the pandemic, I started baking bread just to pass the time. Now I run a small bakery out of my garage. I never, ever, 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 ever thought that I would be a baker, but here I am, covered in flour and loving it. Mike, thank you so much for sending that in from Miami, Florida. And if you want, feel free to send up some sourdough bread this way. We would love to be able to sample some of your wares and get your little business out there to the masses to get you some more orders there. We've got another one here from Jessica. She's writing in from Helena, Montana. And Jessica writes, my husband and I moved to a tiny town just outside Helena for his job, and I was miserable at first. Then I joined a local book club, and now I've got a group of friends who I feel like are my second family. Sometimes the best things absolutely come from the places that you least expect. Thank you for writing in, Jessica. And yeah, it's great to know, that even something as small and minuscule as like a little local book club can end up becoming such a massive light in the darkness that allowed you to generate that new crew and group of friends. So good on you, and I'm glad you were able to find them up there in the booming metropolis of booming metropolises of Montana. Finally, Tom from over in Cali, my old stomping grounds, California, says, I thought I'd retire in my hometown, but unfortunately, after my wife passed, I decided to travel. I've been to 20 countries. Wow, 20 countries in the last 3 years, and every place has taught me something new about myself. Life's too short to stay in one place. Tom, preaching to the choir, dude. I have been I've been to at least almost 40 states, I want to say. The only places my wife and I have not been to in the United States are up along the East Coast, like New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, things like that. We're eventually planning an East Coast trek up to the East Coast to get that checked off as well. Plus, we haven't been to the Pacific Northwest, Washington and Oregon and Idaho. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I love road trips. I love traveling. I hate staying stagnant. I hate cabin fever. I need to be up and moving. So yeah, like you said, life's way too short to stay in one place, and I could not agree more. So thank you guys very, very much for all of those stories. And as I said, guys, keep those stories coming. If you've got a wild detour, survival tip, or just want to reach out and say hi and give some feedback, reach out to me on social media. I'm at smorgasbordjk, or shoot me an email, john@knopickventures.com. I love hearing from you guys. Now, I also did get a couple questions from listeners this week as well, so I'm just going to take a quick second to tackle a couple of those. One question came in was, how do you stay positive during your big life changes? And that's a great question, guys. For me, it's all about perspective. I try to focus on only the things that I can control. I always, again, as I said, I find humor in the chaos and remind myself that every challenge is an opportunity to grow. And when all else fails, I lean on my support system, my amazing wife, my incredible son. If they're able to help me at the time, her family. my family, as I said, my family, my friends, and yes, even you guys, my loyal listeners. Other question I got was, what's the best advice you've ever received about starting over? The best advice I ever got was from my mom. Love you, mom. Always, always, always. She used to say, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your skills, your sails. Sorry. Huh. Try to quote your mom, and this is what happens. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Life's always going to throw you curveballs, guys, but it's up to you to decide how you respond. Alrighty, so with that, that is it for this week's episode of The Smorgasbord with John Knopick. If there's one thing that I hope you guys take away from this episode, it's this. Life's left turns are absolutely tough, but they make the best stories. Embrace the chaos, laugh at the mess, and remember you're not alone. You're never, ever, ever alone on this ride. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with a friend who could use a little encouragement. You can find me on all the social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Podcast is available on all major podcast streaming sources: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeart, just to name a few. Leave a review and share the show, as I said, with a friend who can use a little encouragement. Next week, we're going to be looking into a little more on the sides of trauma and resilience. So if you got a story or a question that you'd like me to put up on the episode, absolutely send it my way. This has been the Smorgasbord with John Knopick. I am John Knopick, and as always, as we close out our show every single time, ladies and gentlemen, take my advice. Pull down your pants and slide on the ice. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll see you guys next time. Hope you're full.